Welcome back for another deep dive. I love getting these excerpts from you, and today we're diving into the life of Paul Dirac, one of the most important physicists really in history. He's considered one of the founders of quantum mechanics, and I've just started looking through these excerpts, but he just seems like such a fascinating blend of scientific brilliance, but also a really unique, almost eccentric personality. So what jumped out at you first when you were reading through this?
I think it's really interesting how Dirac's story kind of reminds us that, sometimes revolutionary science comes from unconventional minds. I mean, his contributions are just monumental, and his work is still super relevant today.
So give me an example. Like, what are some of his most significant achievements for those who might not be familiar with his work?
Well, to start, Dirac laid the foundation for quantum mechanics and quantum field theory, right? And these are basically the frameworks that govern the entire subatomic world. He also formulated the Dirac equation, which is crazy because it predicted the existence of antimatter. But on top of that, it's also considered one of the most elegant and important equations in all of physics. The guy was awarded the Nobel Prize in physics at 31.
31. It's insane. So even in his early years, it was clear that he was a super exceptional talent. I mean, even in these excerpts, it says his university professors called him the most original student they'd ever encountered.
Totally. And I think that originality is key to his story. Take the Dirac equation, for instance. It describes, the behavior of fermions, which are these fundamental building blocks of matter, like electrons and quarks. And the crazy thing is, this equation predicted the existence of antimatter particles with the same mass, but opposite charge to their matter counterparts.
So wild.
So wild.
Yeah, it's like this whole mirror universe, matter and antimatter,
Right.
reflecting each other. But what I find even more fascinating is that Dirac himself initially struggled to interpret his own equation. He didn't immediately grasp the implications of these negative energy solutions.
It's true. It took him some time before he realized that these solutions represented something completely groundbreaking. The existence of antiparticles, like the positron, the antimatter counterpart to the electron. This discovery, opened up entirely new avenues of research in physics and propelled us toward a deeper understanding of the cosmos.
So you've got this brilliant mind that unearths this discovery that totally changes our understanding of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But then you start reading about Dirac's personal life, and it's like stepping into a completely different dimension.
Yeah.
He's described as so precise, quiet, laser-focused on his research, almost to an extreme.
Right. I mean, it's comical when you read about his colleagues at Cambridge inventing a unit of measurement called the Dirac, defined as 1 word per hour. That's so direct.
Oh, yeah. And then there's that story about Dirac asking Heisenberg, how do you know beforehand that the girls are nice? When Heisenberg was just out there enjoying dancing. It makes you wonder, did this unconventional way of thinking contribute to his scientific breakthroughs?
That's a great question. It's totally possible that, that intense focus and just disregard for social norms let him explore areas that other people wouldn't or couldn't. I mean, maybe it was those qualities that liberated him from conventional thinking and allowed him to see the universe in a way that others just didn't.
It's like he could tune out all the noise of the world and focus completely on those mathematical harmonies of the cosmos. But speaking of unique perspectives, what about Dirac's views on religion? I know the excerpts you sent kind of hinted at some pretty strong opinions. What did you think?
Oh, for sure, yeah. His perspective on religion is really thought-provoking. He was very critical of it. In a conversation with Heisenberg and Pauli at the 1927 Solvay conference, he straight up called it a jumble of false assertions. He even went so far as to suggest that religion served a political purpose, it kept the lower classes happy and easier to govern.
Wow, that's a very bold statement coming from a physicist. It makes you wonder, what led him to such a strong view?
It does. It seems like his scientific mind, craved evidence and logical consistency, which, religion often lacks. But here's the thing. It's interesting to note that later in life, he did entertain this idea of God as a mathematician of a very high order, suggesting that the universe is this grand mathematical creation.
Really? So it's almost a complete shift in perspective there. It's suggesting there's something, beyond our understanding, a much more complex reality.
Exactly. It really reveals a mind, wrestling with those big questions while also making groundbreaking scientific discoveries. It makes you wonder, what do you find most intriguing about these, seemingly contrasting views on religion?
I think it's just so fascinating how these glimpses into his personal beliefs add another layer to who Dirac was. It's he wasn't just this calculating machine. He was a complex person dealing with big philosophical questions right alongside his scientific pursuits. And this is just the start of our deep dive. I can't wait to see what other insights we find as we go through these excerpts.
It really adds a whole other dimension, doesn't it, when you get these glimpses into their personal lives and beliefs. But, even with all the monumental things we've already talked about, there's still so much more to uncover in Dirac's story. What else has caught your eye as you've been looking through this material?
Well, one thing I've been thinking about is what he did later in his career. Like after all those groundbreaking discoveries in the 20s and 30s, did he just keep pushing the boundaries of physics?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Dirac definitely wasn't the type to just rest on his laurels. He stayed super active in research, always trying to, push those boundaries. And one really fascinating part of his later career was his involvement in the Manhattan Project during World War II.
The Manhattan Project. It's hard to imagine someone like Dirac, so quiet and contemplative, working on something like, well, the atomic bomb.
It's a good reminder that even the most abstract scientific discoveries can have really, profound and sometimes unsettling real-world implications. And Dirac's work on uranium enrichment was actually crucial to the project's success. He even introduced a whole new unit of measurement, the separative work unit, to quantify the effort involved in that, complex process of increasing the percentage of the uranium isotope that can sustain a nuclear chain reaction.
So even in this, top secret, high stakes environment, his mind is still drawn to that mathematical elegance and precision. It's incredible. It also makes me think about something else we mentioned earlier, how Dirac never fully embraced the concept of renormalization in quantum field theory. Why was that?
I think that resistance really stemmed from his deep conviction in the beauty and logical consistency of mathematics. And renormalization, while a powerful tool in quantum field theory, does involve, dealing with these infinities that crop up in calculations. Essentially, it's this process of subtracting infinite quantities to get finite, meaningful results.
It almost sounds like mathematical magic.
Right. And for Dirac, who saw mathematics as, the language of nature, renormalization just felt arbitrary, like a patch, not a true solution. He actually said, "I must say that I'm very dissatisfied with the situation because this so-called good theory does involve neglecting infinities which appear in its equations, neglecting them in an arbitrary way. This is just not sensible mathematics."
So even though renormalization has been super successful in making accurate predictions in particle physics, it still felt intellectually dishonest to him.
Exactly. He really believed that a fundamental theory of physics should be free from these types of, inconsistencies. And I think even though his stance might be seen as a blind spot, it actually pushed other physicists to try to find more elegant, more mathematically rigorous formulations of quantum field theory.
It's a reminder that even the greatest minds can have these, these areas where they get stuck.
Yeah.
But sometimes that can lead to new and important questions. What about after the Manhattan Project? Did Dirac go back to the world of academia?
He did. He actually continued in his prestigious role as the Lucasian Professor of Mathematics at Cambridge until 1969.
Wow. That's quite a run. But then I read that he eventually moved to the United States. Any idea what prompted that?
Well, Cambridge had this mandatory retirement age, and Dirac was clearly not ready to stop working. So he ended up accepting a position at Florida State University. And it seems like Florida really agreed with him. Accounts from that time say he was much more sociable than in his younger years, enjoying swimming in the lakes and having lunch with colleagues. Of course, he never lost that intellectual drive, publishing over 60 papers while he was at FSU.
So a change of scenery can be good for anyone, even brilliant physicists. But thinking about his work overall, what would you say is Dirac's lasting impact on the world of physics?
Yeah.
It's clear he had these huge individual achievements, but what about his broader influence on the field as a whole?
His legacy is massive, and it's multifaceted. He's not just remembered for his specific discoveries, but also for that relentless pursuit of mathematical beauty in physics, and that unwavering belief in its logical coherence. He really set a high bar for everyone who came after him.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like he set a bar that would be hard to reach.
For sure. And that influence continues to this day. There are tons of awards and institutions named after him, like the Paul Dirac Medal and the Dirac Medal of the ICTP. Both recognize, outstanding contributions to theoretical physics. So it's this constant reminder of his lasting impact on the field.
It really makes you think about what his reaction would be to some of the more recent advances, right? Like the Higgs boson discovery or string theory.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's tempting to speculate. But I guess we'll just have to let our imaginations run wild with those possibilities. What stands out most to you when you think about his life and work?
It's that remarkable connection between his, very uncompromising pursuit of mathematical elegance and his impact on our understanding of the physical world. He was a true visionary, someone who saw the universe in this way that most of us just can't even imagine. You're so right. It's amazing to think that sometimes the most groundbreaking discoveries come from those who, you know, dare to think differently, to really embrace the unconventional and follow that path of the mathematical beauty wherever it might lead. As we've been talking about Dirac, I keep thinking about this quote from Einstein. He said that Dirac's work was like balancing on the dizzying path between genius and madness. And it's just like the perfect way to describe him, right? This enigmatic figure. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's spot on. I mean, Dirac's mind just worked on another level, and it allowed him to make these incredible leaps in physics, but it also made him, well, pretty different from everyone else.
He didn't say much, but when he did, it was always something profound.
Hmm.
There's this great anecdote in the biography where someone asked him about his, fundamental belief.
Mm.
And in true Dirac fashion, he walks over to a blackboard and writes, "The laws of nature should be expressed in beautiful equations."
Oh, I love that story. It's so him. It says so much about how he saw the world, right? To him, math wasn't just a tool, it was like the core of reality, the language the universe was written in.
It's almost like he believed that the universe itself was this, like, grand mathematical symphony. And he was trying to figure out the harmonies.
And maybe he was onto something. The more we learn about the universe, the more we see those intricate mathematical structures. His work shows us just how powerful abstract thought can be in unlocking the secrets of the universe.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that someone could understand the universe so deeply but still be, so humble and down to earth.
Right.
But even with all his achievements, do you think there was anything in his life he considered a failure or maybe a missed opportunity?
Well, we talked about how he never really accepted the concept of renormalization, right, in quantum field theory. He saw it as more of a mathematical trick than an actual solution. It's possible that he saw that as something he couldn't quite crack, like an unfinished symphony.
So even what some people might see as a setback, he was still like pushing the boundaries of science. And that skepticism about renormalization forced other physicists to really grapple with those same questions, which ultimately led to a much deeper understanding of the theory.
Definitely. And I think there's another really important lesson in his life, too. It's not just about achieving greatness, but about pursuing knowledge with real passion, integrity, and that unwavering commitment to truth.
This deep dive has been, well, a real deep dive into the mind of one of the most brilliant physicists of the 20th century.
Yeah.
I mean, we've looked at his discoveries, his personality, his legacy, but like any good deep dive, I think we're coming back up with more questions than answers.
I agree. And I think that's like a sign of truly influential thinkers. Their ideas keep echoing and sparking new questions.
So to our listener, we'll leave you with this. How did Dirac's, total dedication to mathematical beauty shape not only his scientific work, but his whole worldview, his place in the universe? It's a great question to think about as you keep exploring the amazing world of quantum mechanics and the legacy of Paul Dirac.
And until our next deep dive, keep asking those big questions. Never stop exploring the universe.